It is February 21st, 2025, and the email I'm going to read was written in May of 2022. This is my first official email that I have inducted into my Jim Carrey emails. A Jim Carrey email, to me, is an email that is equal parts ridiculously stupid, over-the-top weird, and also equal parts brilliant, just like Jim Carrey. So, this is my first email inducted into my Jim Carrey emails. Just hold on for a ride. You'll get where it's going after a little while. So if you know me, then you'll know my train of thought and where I'm going with it and what I'm actually saying. Okay? Enjoy. Hi, Dr. Nelson. Today is Monday, May 30th. It is Memorial Day. It is a holiday just past 4 p.m. I'm so smitten with myself for what I've done that I wanted to give myself a reward. So I decided what better reward could I give myself than to allow myself to be completely free and open and honest and have some fucking fun. Normally I would run an idea like this past my therapist, but I don't see Paul until the 13th, and I believe I see Larry hopefully at the end of this week, but their offices are closed today because it is a holiday, so I'm left to my own devices. Since I have now officially ruined the gift that I was going to give Paul and tell Larry all about, I thought, well, I am super creative, and I did just win a battle so big, I mean so monumentally big, that it is worthy of a reward, so why not use my natural talent and skill and combine it all with some good old-fashioned psychological mindfuck. Let the games begin. And since my ego has boosted, I'm feeling particularly confident this fine morning. For some reason, my head, heart, and gut all agree that going toe-to-toe with the master of supreme mindfuckery is absolutely the best way to go. Because why not, you know? I mean, I am a fucking badass. I told you I was a badass. You have seen me be a badass so many times, yet your complete lack of respect for me showed all over your face, and you have zero faith that I will follow through with anything remotely damaging to you. So I figure I wanted to give you and your lawyers an email to mull over and try to decide if I'm in psychosis, or I'm just fucking with you, or I'm getting payback, or I'm really sick, or I'm just lying. Hi, lawyers. Hi, Nelson family lawyers. It's me, Carolyn, the real Carolyn. I'm right here. Over here, sillies. Wave at the attorneys, Carolyn. Okay, Carolyn, but why would I wave to them? Aren't they the enemy? Oh, Carolyn, you're so silly. Dr. Nelson is so unbelievably arrogant with such an extreme narcissist that he hasn't realized he needs to lawyer up yet. It's too soon for his fragile PhD brain to wrap itself around the actual truth of the situation. But wait, Carolyn, surely he knows how far you've gotten in your analysis of the situation. I mean, come on, he knows you better than anyone else on the planet. Oh, no, silly girl. You see, Carolyn, Dr. Nelson is a very special and unique case mix of the right amounts of cocky and God complex, mixed with a sense of total lack of responsibility, and no morals, no empathy, and all that crammed into a bread bowl of total lack of shame or honor in the mental health community. Wow, Carolyn, that's a lot. I mean, that's kind of bold. What do you think he will do when this hits the papers? Well, Carolyn, we have some time before we go public. We still have a lot of pre-planning to do. See, Dr. Nelson has been doing his masterful mindfuckery for over 30 years, so he simply reuses old plans and procedures to hurt and destroy his patients. I'm curious if he ever bothered to develop a Carolyn-proof escape route. Oh my gosh, does a Carolyn-proof escape route exist? Geez, Carolyn, hold your horses. Remember, this all just happened a few hours ago. There will be many steps that we have to take on our end before Dr. Nelson and his clan gets a chance to show off what millions of dollars and 30 years of experience bring to the table. Wow, Carolyn, that's kind of amazing. I mean, what if Carolyn goes to court one day and the Nelson lawyers all come at her? Carolyn isn't seasoned like Dr. Nelson. How on earth can Carolyn defend herself and prove herself the victor against such a superior opponent? Well, you see, Carolyn, that's going to be tricky. But for perhaps the first time ever, Carolyn will have truth and honesty and the actual reality of the situation on her side. Carolyn may not have any money for a team of attorneys, but for once, reality may just be what saves her. I mean, won't Dr. Nelson see right through all this? Won't he know the truth? Well, I don't think so, Carolyn. See, remember, Carolyn just discovered that her precious ex-therapist is way beyond out of touch with reality. I suppose it's because no one was ever strong enough or courageous enough to combat such a strong warrior. So when Carolyn found out that for sure her beloved therapist of 7.5 years had absolutely zero faith in her skills and abilities, and no doubt has no worry or concern over her motivation to seek revenge, she sort of snapped. Wait, Carolyn, shh! Don't tell the Nelson attorneys that Carolyn snapped. That looks bad on us. Don't worry, Carolyn. Remember, we have miles and miles and tons of texts of Carolyn suffering in deep psychosis that the Nelson attorneys have to read through. I assure you, Carolyn, this little email sent to the masterful doctor of mindfuckery will be barely noticeable on the list of worries. Plus, really, all the regular emails and forum posts and therapy books will have those attorneys' heads spinning. I mean, just how much was Carolyn in psychosis? And it appears that Dr. Nelson has always been the catalyst for her flying into an episode, so shouldn't he be worried? No, Carolyn, not one bit. The doctor has been bulletproof his entire career. The doctor has never failed, never once. So my hypothesis is, even though Carolyn is being completely open and honest, and most importantly, transparent with this email, the doctor most likely won't even read it. In fact, Carolyn, let's do a test. Let's test the doctor for once and see how he likes it. Okay, Carolyn, what do we do? Well, Carolyn, let's do something brash. Yes, let's use the truth and honesty as weapons against a slimy, arrogant, emotionally abusive, cocky piece of shit asshole doctor and see how he reacts. Go ahead, Carolyn. Don't be shy. Okay, well, hey, Dr. Nelson, this is Carolyn. You know your recent ex-patient, Carolyn. I need to test you now, but I wanted to make sure you knew what was going on first, okay? Good. Now, the test is one statement that you need to prove is true or false. That's it. Don't be scared, Dr. Nelson. Carolyn may not be seasoned as you, but she's damn clever, especially when Carolyn feels extremely undermined and overlooked and taken advantage of. Carolyn is a beast, and even her ex-boyfriend knew to fear her. Oh yeah, but wait, Carolyn. In order to fear her, you must at least respect her. Dr. Nelson doesn't respect her, so he can't possibly fear her. I know, Carolyn. That's what makes this email so much fucking fun. Here is the statement you need to prove true or false, Dr. Nelson. Throughout the court processes, if at any time for any reason one or more of the Nelson attorneys reference this email and attempt to use it as proof that Carolyn cannot be trusted as a victim or a witness of intensive emotional abuse due to her psychosis or mental illness or feelings for the doctor, then Carolyn wins. If while in court, not one mention of this email is made, then that means the doctor who was so arrogant and sloppy, he deemed this email stupid before reading it because he saw no value in the sender of the email and was so cocky he didn't bother to gather up as much evidence as he could. Wait, that's it? Well, who wins if he never reads the email? Ah, that's the beauty of truth and honesty and reality all being on Carolyn's side this go-round. If the great doctor doesn't bother to open and read the entire email, or if he reads it and deems it to be nonsense, then all of Carolyn's supporters win a huge victory. Why is that, Carolyn? Because, silly girl, right now some of Carolyn's favorite supporters are reading this for the first time and are horrified and scared she made a terrible mistake. Carolyn has so many supporters and they all are so worried that 7.5 years of abuse may have affected her deeper than expected. But Carolyn has no control over her heart, as Dr. Nelson knows all too well. Carolyn and Dr. Nelson have discussed in detail many times the power and strength of her heart, and her heart is so outraged and pissed off that her favorite person turned out to be a sociopath just like her ex-boyfriend that it cannot be contained. Carolyn's heart knows that if the Nelson attorneys do not address this email, that it will be such a huge relief for the Carolyn supporters, thereby scoring her or them a win. Carolyn is so confident in her many years of acquired psychological skills, and add that to her dedication of telling the truth and being honest, then mix in her hatred of liars and abusers, and you got one powerful little Carolyn. Carolyn refuses to allow a piece of shit, lying, slimy criminal slither away from the damage he chose to do on purpose while getting paid by an insurance company, so Carolyn decided to do what she does best, be creative. Wow, Carolyn, that sounds awful risky. Maybe Carolyn should really run this by Larry and Paul just to be safe. Well, you see, Carolyn, that's the beauty in Carolyn's creativity being so strong and unique. Right now, Larry and Paul are hearing this for the first time, and Carolyn is having a hard time reading this out loud to them because her smile is getting big and her energy level is rising, and she is finding it hard to contain her happiness. Carolyn is so clever and creative, she found a way to give the gift of madness to her two new therapists. See, Carolyn has only experienced therapy with a true madman. Carolyn feels kind of weird working with two non-crazy people. In fact, Carolyn almost feels awkward around Larry and Paul because she doesn't know what to do around two regular therapists. Carolyn was so used and abused for a really long time, it's going to be hard for her and her new non-evil therapist to appear as trustworthy. Carolyn loved and trusted Dr. Nelson 100% the entire time, knowing that she was thrown into a game and set up to fail no matter what really hurts her. Clearly, Carolyn has bounced back because right now Larry and Paul are smiling and they are starting to understand what is happening. I think Carolyn is really respectable. I hope Larry and Paul will respect her. I don't worry one bit about Carolyn. She is resilient. She will find a way to mend her heart. All she needs is an outlet. Carolyn is a strange bird sometimes. Carolyn finds joy in some odd activities, and sometimes she does things that are so weird and bizarre most folks don't get what she finds to be so funny. Carolyn is very sad because she and Dr. Nelson used to laugh all the time. Carolyn used to say laughing with Dr. Nelson was one of her favorite things to do. Now Carolyn knows it was all a game and she never meant anything to him, and Dr. Nelson was laughing at her, not with her. Oh my gosh, Carolyn, what are Paul and Larry going to think about all this? How are they going to cope with finding out about Carolyn's awesomeness via an email she composed and tailor-made for her beloved ex-therapist? Carolyn hasn't had time to inform them of just how advanced she really is, and Carolyn doesn't know how non-psychotherapists react when they witness her awesomeness for the very first time. Don't you think they'll be concerned, or at least confused? Carolyn has thought a lot about this. From the time she started this email until now, she used all that she has learned and discovered about psychology and therapy and came to the conclusion that the same goes for the therapists that treat her from now on as the guys who respond to her dating profile. Carolyn is going to refuse to alter or change herself to appeal to any new therapist. Carolyn's issues run deep and she is in a lot of intense pain, so if a therapist cannot appreciate how amazingly awesome Carolyn is, then it wasn't meant to be. Her dating profile scares away most men because they don't get her sense of humor, and she wouldn't have it any other way. Carolyn has always been told she is special and unique long before she met Dr. Nelson, but as gaslighting was so cleverly disguised as emotional abuse, she struggled to understand how her beloved therapist couldn't agree with her viewpoint of herself. Oh my, poor Carolyn. First she had to endure all that gaslighting from Josh, and now she found out that her abusing sociopath therapist has been gaslighting her all along as well. Carolyn is so sad. But the one thing that Carolyn is clinging to and is stoked about is she fucking won. That bitch went toe-to-toe with a master. He was a 30-year seasoned clinical psychologist with a goddamn PhD, and she fucking won. Carolyn is impressed. Well, isn't it a bit early to claim that Carolyn won? I mean, Dr. Nelson doesn't even believe that Carolyn would ever follow through with such a thing. Dr. Nelson has his head shoved so far up his ass he can't see that this time it's Hurricane Carolyn taking lead of this abuse issue alongside her heart. The magnitude of Hurricane Carolyn, along with the absurd strength and power of her heart working together for the greater good of Carolyn's soul, is a phenomenon to be witnessed. Wait a minute now, Larry and Paul have not heard Carolyn use her own unique abstract style of communication. I'm not sure a non-insane therapist will understand that her abstract descriptions of psychological situations is actually quite profound and fascinating and surprisingly effective. Carolyn feels certain she must learn to trust her gut feelings more when it comes to mental illness and psychological warfare. Because she is one badass bitch, yet due to her insecurity, she keeps needing reassurance that she is in fact dope as shit and her brain is educated enough to call a spade a spade. Carolyn just hopes her two new non-scary therapists can cope with all this new information all at the same time. I mean, Carolyn does in fact like to boast about herself sometimes, and the fact that her psychopath ex-therapist was making so much effort to force Carolyn to believe her genuine and fact-checked feelings and observations about herself were in fact always been on point. Hold on, Carolyn, I'm confused. Who is this email for? I thought we were tailor crafting it for Dr. Nelson. Don't worry, Carolyn, it's easy to be confused. Poor Carolyn had to endure some serious trauma that confused her like crazy and brought her so much intense pain that she by no means wants to harm or confuse or mislead any of her supporters. All of her supporters need to do is rely on the true knowledge and respect of Carolyn and trust that Carolyn is way stronger than she appears, even though Carolyn is in a rough place right now. Everyone must trust that she is in her wheelhouse and she is not broken, just wounded, and that Carolyn is super creative and wickedly funny. So then, who is Carolyn crafting this email for? I think if Carolyn wants to come join us on the main stage for a few moments, she herself could answer that question. Come on up and take the mic, Carolyn. Hey everyone, this is Carolyn and I'm super happy to be here. I'm so thrilled so many supporters could make it. Wish I could say I was happy to see Dr. Nelson, but I can't seem to find him. All I see is a herd of Nelson attorneys. Oh my gosh, hold on a second, Carolyn. Should we start a game? Maybe we should take some bets on just how much time Dr. Nelson is going to have to pay for all these Nelson attorneys to analyze and dissect this very email. I mean, he is already going to have to pay a bunch of legal fees to the board and the state, and he's going to lose his license, so his attorneys may actually spend a lot of time in this email because it came after the incident. In fact, I bet right now some of his team of attorneys are scratching their heads to understand what's happening here. Carolyn is such a badass. Carolyn may be a little full of herself. I'm not so sure this will be an easy victory for her. I assure you Carolyn is expecting a hefty battle between the doctor and herself. I mean, that's the driving force behind her decision to craft this email to the doctor. Ding, ding, ding! That's right, folks. Carolyn is in fact crafting this email for her gaslighting, kooky, loving, crazy ex-therapist. Because remember that Carolyn sometimes can be wicked creative and use her creative talents to send messages to different people that say different things, all in the same communication method. Golly, Carolyn, I wonder if this is psychosis. I mean, sometimes when Carolyn goes through a crisis, she goes off her meds and straight into hypomania because she knows she thinks differently when her brain is not caged in with meds. So now I'm curious how Carolyn might handle a crisis as big as this with her fierce attitude to protecting vulnerable mentally ill patients and her pure hatred of any abuser who preys on people who are totally innocent, and along with her intense sadness over her situation. I know Carolyn is a badass, but sheesh, do you think Carolyn is going to need to work extra hard to get through this 7.5 years of abuse and gaslighting? Carolyn is frustrated for sure, but Carolyn is counting on Larry and Paul to guide her towards a realistic outcome. Yet, I hear, yeah, but I'm concerned Larry and Paul won't know how to take Carolyn's confidence and praise of herself. Dr. Nelson tried really hard to knock her down, and he chipped away at Carolyn's reality when he started to become annoyed with Carolyn constantly figuring shit out. And shockingly, it only took about a week or a little less for Carolyn to uncover the truth as to why he ended the game precisely when he did. Carolyn was suffering really bad right after Dr. Nelson left the final session because at that point he had won the battle because Carolyn could not make any sense of her current reality. And of course, Dr. Nelson, the master gaslighter, left her in such a mindfuck state, he knew for sure for her to accept the reality of the situation, it would take a massive great deal of mature psychological thinking combined with crafty therapeutic coping styles to allow her heart to accept her favorite person is pure evil and needs to go to jail, plain and simple. I must say I'm sort of mind-boggled at Carolyn's sharp, poignant glare in the obvious that supremely subtle messages and little fuck yous strategically placed around this email. Carolyn is on her A game today. I can tell Carolyn is super pissed and fighting her anger because she's talking to so many different people. Carolyn knows that Larry and Paul couldn't possibly know just how amazing this email is just yet because they haven't spent enough time with her. But Carolyn remains in good spirits because she is really enjoying herself and she is loving the idea that her disgusting ex-therapist overlooked her so strongly that even though he is a master of manipulating and controlling an innocent victim, he is very observant and his narcissistic ego got too big and dismissed all of Carolyn's qualities too soon. This silly, abusing doctor of hers keeps forgetting how good of a writer Carolyn is and how sometimes stress and pain can cause Carolyn to utilize odd wordplay to convey information to people of her choosing. I'd like to check in with the Nelson attorneys. Is any of this helping you? Would you like Carolyn to clarify anything for you? If you ask Carolyn a direct question, she will respond with a clear and concise answer. In fact, Carolyn welcomes anyone with questions to speak up because she is having a great time composing this email and she would love to share her joy with the audience. Damn, Carolyn is feeling good. I can barely keep up with Carolyn's awesome throwbacks and fuck you she keeps adding into this email. The doctor really hurt her, but Carolyn is really looking forward to sitting down with Larry and Paul later on and pointing out all the ways this email is fucking rockin'. If the doctor had any respect or faith in her, he would read this email multiple times just to check in on all her selective fuck yous sprinkled throughout this message. Because sure, he is a slimeball abuser, but he is also a real PhD and highly intelligent, and in a weird way, he met his match the day he shook Carolyn's hand. Oh, come on now. You can't say Carolyn is equal to the doctor. Oh, no. Carolyn is not equal to the doctor. Carolyn has too much empathy and heart and class and hope and love in her soul to ever be equal to a monster such as the doctor. No, she's better. And he knows it. And he felt threatened by it. So he started tearing her down in different ways, and Carolyn now can see where he would be struggling with his abusive tactics as to why they weren't working on her. But I mean, this is what set him off to quickly as possible to end the therapeutic relationship when that madman Dr. Nelson realized he wasn't having any fun anymore with his victim because the victim was showing signs of superior intelligence to him, and he was absolutely not going to put up with that. Can you imagine? The great, almighty, untouchable, master-abusing, delightful Dr. Nelson had to have his ego put in check due to a 44-year-old, untrained, severely mentally ill, hilarious female growing and learning so fast. Carolyn isn't sure yet, but she thinks this game ended early because towards the very end, Carolyn noticed a change in the doctor's face and words, and then more and more rapid as the countdown to the end continued. Carolyn understands so much more now that her therapeutic relationship exploded and forced Carolyn to face reality dead on and really accept the real and horrific truth. Poor Carolyn. She had to endure so much abuse in her childhood. It seems unfair that all she was looking for was honest therapy with an intelligent therapist, and what she got was so much greater for her in the end. It sucks that Carolyn has to be a 2-time survivor of severe mental emotional distress and abuse, but somehow Carolyn manages to make lemonade out of lemons. I mean, this situation is fucked up from beginning to end, and Carolyn appears to remain ever hopeful and full of confidence because this bitch is making me laugh. I mean, come on, isn't Carolyn just hilarious today? When that bitch is on, she is on. I am impressed with all her well-established ability to bounce back and fight back against bullies and abusers and those fucking sociopathic, narcissistic, egotistical, arrogant motherfucking therapists. I mean, did you see it when Dr. Nelson tried so hard to gaslight her when she was desperately trying to figure Dr. Nelson's mental illness out? Man, that crazy smart bitch annoyed the shit out of him when she would be dead on and he couldn't convince her that she was wrong. Damn, Carolyn is such a strong survivor. Carolyn isn't sure anyone is going to know how hard and awful those last 10 months were while in treatment with a maniac. Well, Carolyn should probably wrap this up. She's having fun with this, but she knows she could easily do this shit for hours, so it's time to call it a day. Or an email. Damn, Carolyn is such a badass. Carolyn keeps reminding herself that she battled a monster for over 7 years and came out alive. Damn. Now all that's left is to get Larry and Paul up to date on all those battles she had to endure and see where training from non-insane therapists can lead her. This is all you get, Nelson attorneys. I hope Carolyn was helpful today. Be sure to tune in next time as the badass Carolyn continues to celebrate her massive win against a truly disgusting, narcissistic, sociopathic piece of trash, abusive loser. Today marks a new day for Carolyn, and she hopes the evil doctor will try to steamroll her because now that Carolyn has survived yet another long, emotionally abusive, toxic relationship, she is ready and armed for war. Bring it, Dr. Nelson. Give me all that you got, bitch. Yes, I sent that to him. For real. I wrote it all in real time for like 3 or 4 hours, just my fingers pounding against the keyboard. I was on my laptop, not my phone. And I read this beast once. I proofread it one time and then hit send. All that. That's not like me. It's very well written. Yes, it's a lot of run-on sentences, I know. But it was pure rage because I knew if I had emailed him back with F you and I hate you and you lose it, he wouldn't read it. But if he checked in on any of this, he wouldn't know where it's going. I didn't know where it was going. I don't know where any of that came from. Carolyn, come back on stage, take the mic, all that stuff. That just came organically. Just like that. That email is beautiful. The Beauty of Arrogance. I refer to it by name. I only have like 3 emails that I refer to by name because they're that good. Jim Carrey email. That email, stupid, ridiculously over the top, weird, brilliant. Got the point across. I'm a winner. I'm a badass.